Good morning. I really appreciated that story about Mr. Lindsay and the fishing pole. And as a result of that, I was reading some other material, and I came across the story about Joseph Parker, who was a pastor in a large church in London, and Spurgeon, who also had a large church. Spurgeon was a very fiery kind of man. He reacted very quickly. He had lots of energy, and he was really very emotional. Parker was much more laid back, and he carried himself well, and he was a great pastor because he didn't fly off the handle. He was able to handle things. Well, it turned out that one day Mr. Parker had said to some of his deacons, he said, you know, Spurgeon has this orphanage for children, or for boys, and I know that sometimes he doesn't always have as much as he needs to give them the kind of clothing they need and make sure they have the right kind of food. Well, one of the guys that heard this went to Spurgeon and told Spurgeon that Parker was demeaning him. He was telling him that he had a orphanage which didn't take care of the boys right, that they were always hungry, and they didn't dress very nice. And Spurgeon got in a moment of anger, really flashed up. And when he got in the pulpit the next Sunday, he stood up and he berated Dr. Parker and said what he had done, and he was really angry with him. And the newspapers got a hold of it, and they put it on the front page how Spurgeon had berated this man. And so the next Sunday, the reporters came to Dr. Parker, and they said, Joseph Parker, what are you going to do? And Joseph Parker said, well, I'll answer Spurgeon next Sunday morning. And so, of course, all of the media of that day was present to see what Joseph Parker would do. And Joseph Parker, when it came time for the offering, Joseph Parker stood up and he said, you know, Mr. Spurgeon has an orphanage, and that orphanage is sometimes very difficult for him, and sometimes he needs extra money to take care of feeding the boys and making sure they have the right kind of clothes. And Spurgeon, this is the Sunday that Spurgeon always takes an offering for the orphanage, and he's sick. He's out of the pulpit today. And so what I think we should do is I think we should take an offering for Spurgeon and the orphanage. And with that, they began to take the offering, and somebody said they had to pass the plates 3 times because they filled up with so much money that was returned. And so Dr. Parker and his deacons put it all together, and one of them took it over and gave it to Spurgeon in his church. And it wasn't very long after the end of that week that Spurgeon showed up at Dr. Parker's house. And when he saw Dr. Parker, he threw his arms around him and said, you know, you're a real man. You have more of the Spirit of Jesus than I'll ever have. What was that all about? That was practicing grace. That was giving somebody something they didn't necessarily deserve. And that's what God always does for us. He continues to practice that with us. Give us the kind of things we need even when we don't deserve them. It may be that we need a better thought process. He can help us get that. It may that we need to practice a different kind of health, a way of doing health. He'll help us do that. Whatever it is, God will grace us if we just let him. I'm praying you'll let that happen in your life today. God bless you.